Hey guys, welcome back to Critical African Thinkers. How is everyone doing? Sorry, I had to start this stream a little bit late. Like this is Critical African Thinkers. This is a place where we examine everything under the microscope of logic to ascertain what is most factual and logically consistent. We're going to be having a show today. We're going to be having an interesting show today. We have a couple of topics that we're going to cover in the show today, but principally we're going to be talking about mouthwash and how he's pissed that he cannot use, the N word, right? So it seems as if he wants to make his life complete. He wants to be able to use the N word, right? The other thing that we're going to be talking about today is the reactions from both the right and the left about the killing slash death of Jordan Neely, and also um, Steven Crowder and his response. Steven Crowder has been in the news. His divorce story. Even though I don't really feel comfortable talking about a man's divorce because that's their personal business. But I just wanted to give my thoughts on that video that showed his interaction with his pregnant wife, right? So then, probably finally talking about the British monarchy, um, you know whether it's an institution that's done for, right? Whether it's still relevant. And I'm going to review, I think, something with Piers Morgan in it. So now that we have the basis for our conversation, let the show begin. So the first topic that I would talk about, the first one before I go into other topics, is about Steven Crowder, right? I'm not going to play that video. I think most of us have seen the video of him and his wife having a conversation, and it's come out to show that somehow he's been emotionally abusing her, right? Now, if you look at that conversation, if you look at the interaction that happened there, you just see, okay, so for people who are online personalities, I usually think that they have, two personalities. There is the public persona, right? The persona that they show to the public, which is much more at times, much more antagonistic, much more abrasive, right? Maybe where they're trying to make a point, pass a point across, right? And there's somewhat of the personal persona. There's the side that they show to their family, the side that they show outside of the camera, right? 'Cause I think most of the time they're just performing for the camera. Interesting to note, it seems as if Steven Crowder on camera is the same person as off camera, because what he displayed in that video just showed as if it was another episode of his Change My Mind series, and this time it was such a dick to my wife all the time, change my mind, right? Because how can you be having that kind of quarrel? How can you be having that kind of heated conversation with your pregnant wife, right? Where it's as if he was so selfish that he wants to put his needs over hers, right? And how can you be that rich and you just have one car? And even if you just have one car, I think she being 8 months pregnant with your child should give her some sort of precedence. In fact, you should be driving her to the place that she wants to go to. You should be the one taking her to that place. So, one, you're not doing that. Number two, you want her to leave the car for you. And it was just like a child. It was so annoying. It was so annoying. And then when she said that she was going to call someone else to take her to the place, he saw it as if she was going to. Oh, good lord, that guy was so annoying. And I don't think that that's any way to. I don't think that's a good way to treat someone who you're married to. I think, especially when she's pregnant, I think he should have handled that situation better. But that's just him. Well, anything he does in his family, that's up to him. If he wants to treat his wife that way, that's fine by him. He has to deal with the consequences that follow it. Now, to the other story of the conversation, right? Jordan Neely, according to Walsh, who is calling him the new George Floyd, right? We've seen, many people have seen the video of what happened, of how he was killed, how he was choked to death. Some stories will carry it that he was choked to death for about 15 minutes, right? Um, Interestingly, this seems like a deja vu in the sense that not his death really, because the responses seems like a deja vu. The responses from the left and the responses from the right, it almost seems like it's a script that they have to follow, right? So when something like this happens, the left would automatically jump to, oh, this is lynching. Like someone like AOC and Mark Lamont Hill have been on that. Oh, this is modern day lynching. They killed him because he was a black man and all that. We have to protest, protest, protest. We have to, riot. We have to do all that. That's what the left wants to do. That's just their go-to strategy. The right, on the other hand, would so in that sense, the left would make him into a martyr. They just make him into an idol, this figure who was just a dancer, who was just trying to entertain people, and somehow this racist white guy decided to end his life. That's the narrative that they're going to paint from the left. That's the racial narrative. On the right, on the other side, they will do the exact opposite. They will still racialize, they will still make it about race, but they just flip it. So this time they will demonize the person, the victim, right? They'll make him out to be this monster, this vagrant, this bomb. They'll use all those kinds of words for him. And it will seem as if they are almost gleeful that this tragedy happened to this man. And then they would they'll start invoking all his maybe criminal history. Oh, he was arrested 44 times. Oh, he had pending arrests, warrants for his arrest. It's a good thing that, it's almost as if they think it's a good thing that he was killed. And many of them haven't, they're not even shy of saying that, right? Many of them are not shy of saying that they believe that it was a good thing that this young man was killed, which is crazy, right? So, whatever the case may be, whatever his history, whatever his criminal history, I think that is secondary to the point of what happened, because the guy who held him in that chokehold that led to his death had no way of knowing that this guy was a criminal. If at all, people are saying, well, the fact that he died was, it was a good thing because after all, he was a criminal. That guy did not, there was no way for him to know that the person he's dealing with was a criminal. He wasn't executing a warrant. He wasn't doing any of that, right? And if I try to, just read about the story and try to get more context about what happened that led to his death, and it all seems so funny and so fishy in the sense that um, in the sense that it was made to seem as if he was threatening people, right? Oh, he was, the article described it as he was being violent. It was being violent towards people. So much so that he threw his jacket on the ground. This is the biggest example of the violence that this young man happened to do. The young man said he was hungry and that he was tired of being hungry, was tired of being homeless, that he didn't care what happened to him, that he didn't care if he goes to jail or he didn't care if he dies. And then threw he just threw his jacket on the ground. He violently threw his jacket on the ground. That was so threatening to people that the young man from behind just tackled him and choked him and held him in that chokehold till he passed out. Right, and it turns out the young man who did that chokehold is an ex-marine, right? And I don't know if there are military people here. Probably Stanley can confirm this. But I read an article which showed that when military people are taught such techniques, they're not taught the technique to subdue someone. They are actually taught that technique to kill someone, right? So I'm not going to project, I'm not going to say that the man had it in mind, that the ex-marine had it in mind to kill this young man, right? But the fact that he used that technique itself on a civilian for that long, right? And the young man was trashing, which they would have interpreted as, oh, he's struggling or he's being resistant. He might just be trashing for some air, and then some other people came around and held his hands, just to facilitate the whole tragedy that happened. So this was a tragedy. But putting it all in perspective, right? Whatever that young man was doing at that point in time, did it necessitate that kind of intervention? Did it necessitate that kind of physical intervention that someone had to tackle him? Because there was no indication that he was attacking anyone. There was no indication that he made any verbal threats towards anyone, right? Yes, he was being disruptive, right? But he hadn't attacked anyone. He hadn't launched an attack on anyone. And people can say, well, this was a preemptive, this was a preemptive action to prevent it from escalating into a position where he attacks someone. Yeah, good and fine. I can accept that. I can accept that. Okay, you can intervene to make sure that this doesn't escalate into a situation where other people get hurt, right? But then you hold this young man, you hold him down for that long. I mean, what were people expecting to happen when you cut off oxygen to someone for that long? The brain takes about 3 to 4 minutes of being starved of oxygen to be damaged permanently, or for the person to die. So if the reports that shows that this guy was held in that chokehold for about 15 minutes are true, then that is horrible. That's horrible. To cut someone's air off for that long is just terrible. And of course, I don't think this has anything to do with the race of any of the individuals. It just happened, in my estimation, they just happen to be of different races, right? So the idea that this thing is going to be racialized, this thing is going to be turn into some, it misses the true conversation by a wide margin. Nobody is going to be asking, why did this situation happen in the first place? How can we prevent something like this from happening? Nobody is going to be asking pertinent questions like, the actions of this young man, didn't necessitate the kind of response that was gotten, right? Nobody's going to be asking. Everyone is going to be fighting these silly racial wars. Those who never knew the guy are going to somehow, um, they are going to somehow, make a matter out of him. They're going to somehow, they never knew about this man. They never cared about him. Now they're going to start protesting about him. And the other sides, they really don't really care about a human being to begin with. They'll just demonize him. So it's all sorts of crazy. It's all sort of crazy and wild things going out. Then the third party involved in all of this is the authorities, right? Now, I noticed the pattern, right? So when things like this happen, the authorities are not, um, uh, they don't do anything. It's as if they almost gauge the public reaction. It's as if they almost gauge what the public is going to do, right? So if there is a protest, then they're going to work on, okay, let's charge this person. But if there's no protest, it's almost as if they'll just keep silent. I don't think that justice should be determined by the pulse of public opinion. I think that if they are going to charge this guy anyway, then they should go ahead. If they're not, then it doesn't matter whether there are going to be protests from here till the end of the year, then it shouldn't matter, right? But it seems as if the authorities are always going to wait to feel the pulse of the people or the protests. Once there are protests, then we're going to make an arrest and we're going to bring a charge against this person. That's just crazy to me, right? That is just crazy to me. So before I open up the charts, where we can talk, let me respond to Matt Walsh. But let me just play his video, and we see you see what he said, and then I'll respond to it. So this is it.
And it is, again, a decision that no one can logically or morally defend. The idea that there's a word that cannot be uttered under any circumstance is completely insane. And it is not something that there's no other word in the English language or any other language in existence that we have those kinds of rules for. There's other words that are slurs. There are words that we would consider vulgarity and profanity, and all kinds of words that I don't say on this show because we try not to use profanity and vulgarity on the show. Words that I don't think you should use, words that you shouldn't use around kids, and so on. And all kinds of words like this. But there's no other word that we would say, well, under no circumstance at all can it even be uttered, even in the context of quoting somebody. And certainly there's no other word where we would say, well, judging on your skin pigment, if it's this shade, you can't say it at all under any circumstance. But if it's a little bit of a darker shade, then say it all the time, and it's totally fine. So there's no context where it can be said over here. There is no context where it can't be said over here. And we are going to decide that based on how dark your skin is. Makes no sense. And I think we all are aware of that.
Yeah, so that's it. So I'm really surprised that of all the things that Matt Walsh could be fighting for right now, he's fighting for the right to be able to say the N word. That's crazy. Okay, so before I give my thoughts on this, let me say, let me still man him. Let me be charitable to Matt Walsh. Let me try and defend his position first before I try to counter it. Right. First of all, I think that black people should, you know, not be so easily triggered by the N word, right? Because I've seen some sort of emotional reactions. I've seen what happened when a white person says the N word to a black person. I've seen those reactions. I think that black people should actually get over that, right? It's a word. If white people, if that's the last thing that they need to make their life complete of all the things in the world, if saying the N word is what's suddenly going to make their life complete, well, let them knock themselves out, right? Also, the case where people can't even say the word in a context of, oh, I'm quoting someone, right? Um, Reported speech, or even saying something close to the N word that sounds or looks like the N word, right? Where it becomes problematic, right? So I think those cases are, I think I just think that's not warranted, right? So, like what happened to Joe Rogan the other time when he was clipped saying the N word in numerous occasions, and they just, put that clip together to try to paint him as such a rabid racist. But if you understood the context of what he was saying, he wasn't using it as a racial slur. Probably he was using it in terms of reported speech. He was using it in within a conversation, right? But he was painted as though he was, was some sort of rabid racist. And then there was the other professor who was saying a Japanese word that sounds like nigger, that said nigger, nigger, nigger. And then the students, they had a fit, and I think the professor was fired. So for such situations, I think Matt is right. It shouldn't be a word where, under no circumstances, people cannot say. Where people cannot say these words, it's like Voldemort. It's one very, very, very forbidden word. However, right, what's so special about this word that Mouthwash wants to have the right to say it? Why does he care so much that African Americans are able to use this word? It's a racial slur, right? So if a people decided to say they want to use a racial slur for themselves, well, let them go ahead. Why is it so important to you that you want to use that word for them as well? I'm a black man, right? I'm not African American, and even I find it, I'm not saying, I won't say I don't use the word. I've never used it, but I find it somehow, even when I get to use it, I feel somehow, but I feel a certain type of way. I don't think it's a word that anyone should just be using, throwing out there, right? I don't think African Americans should be using it for either, right? I think everybody should, be done with that kind of language, be done with that kind of word. But this is what they say they want to use. This is what they want to do. So why is mouthwash so concerned about having the right to use the word? And besides, it's not even illegal to use that word. Um, it's not an illegal word. You actually can use it, Mark. There is no place where it is stated that you cannot use the N word, right? But there to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, right? So yes, when you say it to a black person, you might get a certain reaction that you're not going to like. Just as the word cunt is not an illegal word, right? You can say it to people. But if you were going to call a man's wife or his mother a cunt to his face, you probably be expect that he's going to punch you in the mouth or punch you in the face, right? So I don't see how it is such a big deal to Mark that that word itself, that word is so special that he wants to have the right to use it. I mean, how are black conservatives supposed to navigate such a conversation? How are they supposed to navigate when they know that there are people, who share their political ideology, who are comfortable, who are fighting for the right to use racial slurs that might seem offensive to them? I mean, courtesy just demands that if these people say that, okay, this thing is offensive to me, it's your life is not going to change if you do not use the N word. Your life is not going to change. It's going to be the same way, if at all better. So what is he fighting for? What is it? What exactly is he fighting for? It just seemed it just seemed odd. It just seemed odd that he would be fighting for something like this. So the link is in the chat. If you want to call in, let's have a conversation. You can just call in, and we can talk. So yeah, so let me just take some comments. Virginia Tenney says, the one place I sort of wanted to be able to use the N word was when talking about Joseph Conrad's novel, The End of the Narcissus. Otherwise, it will make me barf if you force me to say it. Yeah, so if it's in a piece of literary work, right, why should it be a problem to say it if it's in a piece of literary work, right? If I have had conversations with people on Twitter, where some certain white guys they try to use the N word to, as a racial slur to trigger me or something, or they want to derail the conversation by calling me the N word, and I'm asking them, am I supposed to be offended by this? Is this somehow supposed to be offensive to me, right? It's not going to be offensive to me. It's certainly not going to be offensive. It's not going to trigger me. So when you do that, you take the power away from them. They're not able to use that word as a weapon against you. They're not able to use that word to hurt you. They're not able to use that word to control you. So there was this video of a police officer, a black police officer, and I think they were making an arrest, and this white guy was just, saying the N word to his face, and he guy just kept calm, right? He handled that situation very, very, very calmly, very, very coolly. And there was this video of a white kid going to the house of a neighbor and knocking on the door and saying, "Hey monkey, come out and play. Hey monkey, come out and play." And the mother, I would really commend that mother. She didn't freak out. She was like, "Okay, so why do you call him monkey?" And the white kid was like, "Well, that's what we call him. That's what my other friends call him." So for that kid, there wasn't any ill intent behind it. It was just the way other kids were referring to this kid, right? And he was referring to this kid this way and saying, "Come out to play." And the mother was like, "Okay, so sorry, he's not going to be able to come out to play with you, right?" So that's the kind of reaction I think people should be having, right? Not a situation where you just go bonkers, you just go crazy over a word. So Wolf is saying, the guy on the subway train, according to a witness, the guy was threatening to harm people on the train and saying he was hungry and ready to go back to jail. The white guy went too far. So, but I'm trying to understand when he said, when they say he was threatening people, no one has mentioned what threats he was making. What threats was he making? I'm going to kill people. I'm going to hurt people. I'm going to what exactly? Well, in my opinion, Wolf continues, in my opinion, this was a situation of defunding police and not having cops respond in a timely manner to save the man's life, and the white guy took it too far. I don't think so, right? The cops are not going to be everywhere all the time. The cops cannot be everywhere all the time. And situations like this would come up again, even if the police was not defunded. The police are not supposed to be everywhere. So if such things happen and the police are not around, is that how the interaction is supposed to end? I don't think so. So I agree with you that the white guy took it too far in the sense that choking him out for that long. I don't think it was motivated by racial animus because it wasn't even the only person who held down this guy. It was just an unfortunate situation, just a terrible, unfortunate situation for everybody, right? So in that sense, no, this guy was, clearly had issues, right? So if someone is saying they're hungry, someone is saying they're tired, the fact that he was even hungry in the first place is enough to show to he's he was already compromised with. If someone is that hungry and then you choke them out, so I think when people intervene in situations, they have to be very, very careful. You know, yes, you're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to help out in a situation, you are trying to prevent things from going from bad to worse. And but then you just make an absolute shit show. You just make a mess of the whole thing. Now it becomes a disaster, right? So there's nothing that could have stopped these three guys who held this man down. There was nothing that could have stopped them from subduing him without choking him, right? Okay, so you held him down. There are other there are other ways that they could have subdued this man without having to choke him, because there was certainly more than one person there trying to subdue him. And it just seems as if people are so socially unaware. They're so socially unaware. They on this this guy must have seen what happened with the George Floyd situation, right? Which was a terrible thing. What was a terrible thing that Chauvin had to kneel on Floyd's back for that number of that length of time. And there have been other situations where people lose their lives in similar situations as well. So people should actually be much more careful when they're faced in with such situations. People should be more careful. So given that context, given the racial dynamics, given all that, you still go out and damn. So Wolf, so the link is in the description. If you want to call in, call in. Let's have a conversation. So Wolf is saying, because the man was probably in a bad health state, mentally and physically, he didn't require a chokehold. One person holding each leg and arm would have been enough. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? This man is mentally unstable, he's hungry, is physically exhausted, and putting him in a chokehold. If it was probably someone who was healthier, they probably wouldn't have died from that chokehold. They probably wouldn't have died. But given his state, given his condition at that time, he was already compromised. He was already compromised. So people have to be very, very careful when they're intervening in situations like this. And if it did come out that it was true that this guy, held him in that chokehold for for 15 good minutes. That's crazy. That is wild. That is crazy. That's something that should. Well, so I think they're ruling his death as a homicide. So I'm thinking that charges are going to be brought. I'm just wondering what the charges are going to be, that's going to be brought against this young man, this ex-marine. But I'm hoping that this charge is not because of the protests. I'm hoping that this charge is not motivated by the protests that are going on, because you don't want to have a situation where the justice system responds to the pulse of the people, responds to social pressure. The justice system is supposed to work independently of how people are feeling, right? It's supposed to work based on the facts itself, right? So there's one other set of people that I have not talked about, which is some black conservatives. The sad case of some black conservatives, right? They put themselves in a situation where they cannot even empathize with someone who's had something terribly done to them, right? Yes, someone can have a criminal history, someone can have a warrant for their arrest, but it doesn't mean that they're no longer a human being. It doesn't mean that they don't even have rights. Only the judicial system should be able to pronounce the death sentence on anyone. So there's some people, like there's this guy Jake Shields on Twitter, who is saying that if you rob someone, if you rob a pregnant woman, or you're a criminal, then it's totally fine if someone kills you. But that's not how things are supposed to be. Criminals are not supposed to just be extrajudicially executed. That's what the laws are for. So if people are going to just go jungle justice, they, why bother have a judicial system? Just let people handle such things in society. But that's not how a civilized society works, or at least that's not how it's supposed to work. So anyone who is seeing this and saying that, oh, the guy deserved to die because he had prior criminal convictions, or because he had a pending warrant for his arrest, there was no way for the guy to know, the guy who choked him, there was no way for him to know that this guy had prior criminal records. So he wasn't acting based on that. He wasn't acting based on, well, I'm trying to stop a criminal, a known criminal. He was reacting based on that situation. And this is the problem I have with, invoking the past of someone um, as a justification for a terrible thing that happens to them. You should look at it within the context of what is happening at that moment. Yes, so if someone is a criminal and they've done their time, right? There's a reason why they've done that. They paid for that crime. If the law has deemed it fit that after a certain period of time, someone has done a time for their crime, and they are out now, why should it be held against them so much? I know, yeah, you can't totally just remove your eyes from them because they have that history, but why should it be held against them? Why should it be a basis for someone to kill them and there is no empathy for them? So going back to the sad case of some black conservatives, like this guy Barrington Martin on Twitter, who said that that if this was a black guy who had killed him, that there wouldn't be any protests, or if this was a black guy killing a white person, there wouldn't be any protest. And I'm like, this comparison is unnecessary for someone who is always complaining about black people racializing everything. You sure do contribute to the racialization of everything. I mean, what's the point of that comparison right now? A man is dead. Does it matter the color of the skin? Or because you want to push a narrative, you want to push your narrative of, oh, you know, people shouldn't protest, or it's simply a whataboutism. And I really do not like such whataboutisms. I seriously do not like such whataboutisms. So you can't have, both sides can totally have, can, the left can sit down and say, you know what, This is a tragedy that's happened. I don't think it was about race, but we need to get justice for this guy. The right can as well say, you know what? Yes, even though this person was a criminal, he did not deserve to be killed in this manner. We need justice. Those are perfectly reasonable propositions. Those are perfectly reasonable propositions, but both sides are not going to see it. The left is going to see it as, some racist attack, right? Modern day lynching, public lynching, like Mark Lamont Hill said. That's the way they're going to see it, which is crazy and wild, in my opinion. And the right, they're going to see that, oh, this is a criminal. He was a threat to society. He had to be put down. It's okay that he was killed. I mean, what? What? Okay, so Wolf say, I seen Officer Tatum's response to that situation on the train. He's defending the white guy's actions, and I will leave the door open until the investigation is done, to be fair. Officer Tatum is a clown. I mean, I say this with all honesty. He's a clown, right? He was one of the very first persons that I used to follow on YouTube, right? And I thought it was interesting for a while, but after watching so many of his videos where there is literally nothing the police will do that Tatum will not defend. There is nothing. The police could literally take a gun and just shoot someone in the head and he'll find a way to defend them. There was no balance to his analysis. His he is the kind of black conservative that I'm talking about, right? He is a clown because you can always predict where his analysis is going to go to. He's going to start invoking that, oh, this was a criminal, this was a what have you. He's going to bring all those externalities that have no bearing on the particular case at that point in time. Yeah. So Wolf is saying the left to use it to cause chaos and harm innocent people. The right is to use the white guy as a hero. That's the standard template. That's how it always goes. That's how it always goes. So the left they would make this guy into a martyr. At least they've started painting him as that. Oh, this nice guy, he just wanted to entertain people. He was a Michael Jackson wannabe. He was such a sweet kid. He was such a that's what they're going to do. The other side is going to do the opposite. They're going to say he's a criminal, he's a vagrant, he's a bomb, he's a threat to society. He needed to be put down. And both sides are wrong. Both sides are wrong, in my opinion, in my estimation. Both sides are wrong, and it's crazy that this even had to be said in the first place. It's crazy that this Stanley said the left and the right are the US. Yeah, that's what I see. It's almost as if it's impossible for people in the US to not racialize anything. It's almost impossible. It's literally impossible for people in the US to not racialize something. The, everything has to be seen through a racial lens, even by those who on the right who keep shouting individualism. Like this Barrington guy who keeps, black people this, black people that, and all that. Keep shouting individualism. Oh, no group. You can't say white people as a group on the enslaved black people. No, it's individuals that enslaved black people. And then I asked him, you keep championing individualism, but then you make a post about black people. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think there's ever a guy named black people, right? So why don't you go specific? Why don't you call out the individual black persons that have done certain things? If you're talking about crime, then call out the individual black people. If you're talking about education and their performance, if you're talking about, call them out. But it seems as if, when it comes to the white people, you are able to make that sort of separation. You're able to say, no, it's the individuals. In the same breath, you would ascribe a group quality, group identity to black people. Double standards, in my opinion. So let's be consistent. I love logical consistency. So how are we going to play this thing? Are we going to play it with, are we going to go group wise? If so, then you have to stereotype across board. You can't pick and choose when to stereotype. You can't pick and choose. There was another account on Twitter too where the guy was defending white people and was saying, not every white person does like this, does like this. In the same breath, he stereotyped black people, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So white people can be individuals, but black people have to be seen as a group. And it's a pattern I've noticed on Twitter. I don't know whether it's representative of the country, but in Twitter it's very, very common, right? If there is anything at all that if there's anything at all that stereotypes white people, you are going to get white people that will come out. They will nuance the shit out of that conversation. They will break down the data just to prove to you that no, it's this individual white person that has done this or that. But when it comes to black people, you're going to hear, oh, 13% of the population committing 50% of the crime. They never go granular. They never go granular. They never go to say, okay, of that 13%, okay, it's 6% of the males, and of that 6% of the males is such and such percent that are committing these crimes. They will just put out that figure and say, oh, it's 13% of the population committing 50% of the crimes, as though 13% of the population, which is about 43 million people, as though they're all criminals. So, you know, you have to be consistent. If you want to stereotype across board, then you have to stereotype across board. But if you want to deal with if you want if your narrative is the individual, then you can't automatically start making it about groups when it comes to black people. And that's what gets me all the time on on Twitter. So Wolf says, you know what, Charles, the lunatic ones love to say not all white people, but they sure do love to say all black people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They'll say, yeah, not all white people, not all white people. But it's easy for them to say all black people. Antonio Fernandez says the left wants to create volcanic eruptions from blacks being killed, and the right feels that it has to try to avoid these eruptions. And then some on the right probably want an eruption in the opposite direction. Yep. Uh, it's like summoning calamities through human sacrifice. That's exactly what it is. I think you just summed up a very interesting point, right? You just summed up a very, very interesting point. Of course, the left, they're going to milk this. Democratic politicians, they're going to milk this tragedy. They're going to come out with all their nonsense platitudes. Nothing is ever going to get done. They're going to ride this wave to probably get elected or to get goodwill. And then till a tragedy like this happens again. It's the same thing that happens whenever there's a school shooting, right? There's a template. The Democrats are going to come out and say, oh, this is terrible. This is crazy. We need more gun control laws. We need more this, and nothing gets done. And then there's another shooting 2 weeks later, and then they come out and say, "This is terrible. This is crazy. We need more gun control laws." And that's the template. And the retards on the right will just be, "Oh, these are criminals. These are bombs. These are what have you." So Wolf is saying, fun fact, Charles: 60% of American blacks are middle class. The other 40%, how many of those blacks are men? Then what is the area they live in? Not all blacks live in the hood. Yep. So the 13% commit over 50% of the homicides is almost insinuating that all black people love to harm each other, which is false. Yeah. And this is the kinds of conversations that will never be had. These are the kinds of nuanced conversations that will never be had, right? Because it's so easy to say 1350, 13% of the, if it would be a war zone, the whole of America, if even 10% of black people are criminals. It would be a war zone. So why don't you go specific? Why don't you, call it out for what it really is? And that's why I think when people say, oh, black people need to fix the crime in their communities, I'm like, well, no one is ever, if you want to look at things like the, transgenderism and some other sexual deviances, you're most likely going to find them in white communities. Nobody ever paints it as a white problem. People paint it as an American problem. No one is ever saying that, oh, the white community needs to fix such and such problems in their community. It's always, it's America has to fix this problem. But when it comes to the crime, it becomes the responsibility of, the black community. I don't think so. I don't think that any black person owes another black person an explanation. I don't think any black person should have to defend or to how do you call it, to bash another black person. They don't have that responsibility. It shouldn't be their responsibility. Criminals should be held liable for what they do. They should be held liable for crimes. So it's not the responsibility of any black person, of quote unquote the black community. It's the responsible of criminals who are the responsibility of criminals who are criminals. It's the responsibility of the authorities to make sure that the criminals get served what they deserve, and to protect property. It's the responsibility of families to make sure that they raise good children, to raise good sons. It is their responsibility. It's not a community thing. Because guess what? What exactly do you call the community? Does everybody agree with each other in that community? Is there a particular way that everybody is supposed to talk? Um, Wolf is saying, Stanley, Officer Tatum refused my call on his podcast. Lord, I called into his show, but he's refused. Like I said, and I'll keep saying, Tatum is a clown. I mean, he's one of the biggest clowns on YouTube, right? And he's just milking his clownassery, right? Is someone who, I would say, and I don't like using this, but is someone who is trying too hard to please white people or to get white people to like him. I would say, and I hate using that, but I think I would have to say that, right? There are those black people who try too hard to hate white people, right? You try too hard to hate, and there are those who try too hard to please them. Tatum is on the other spectrum of that thing. So the police can do no wrong, and white people can do no wrong in his eyes, and it's just crazy. So Wolf is still saying, and just a FYI, not all of us from the hood like this stuff either. The government incentivizes the crime by creating an economic crisis. There's money to be made in tap dancing like Tatum does. Yeah, there is. there's, there's a lot of money to be made when you just pick an ideological position and you stick to it. If you don't want to have a nuanced conversation, if you just want to, oh my goodness, if you just want to, you know, all you just need to do, I think all you just need to do to to make money off the internet is either to pick the right or pick the left and just bury yourself in that hole. Say all the things that those people in that particular sphere want to hear. Keep saying those tips, keep repeating those things. If it's on the left side, keep saying racism, 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 discrimination, discrimination, discrimination. If it's on the right side, keep complaining about crime, about black people, about. And you're going to get sycophants, like Stanley saying, you're going to get people flocking to you because people want to confirm their biases. People want to solidify. They want to find out that whether they just want people to agree with their position. And it's wild. It's crazy. So Stanley is saying, frankly, individualism has always been reserved for elites and then white males, then sycophants. Probably some truth to that. So Wolf says Tatum went from being a middle class cop to pandering for white people, and he got rich and is a multimillionaire now. He makes money by degrading his black brothers and sisters. Yeah, that's exactly what he does. And I keep asking for people like Tatum, how exactly are they changing anything? How exactly are they, making things better? Right? How it just seems like it's pointless. It seems like there's no point to what he's doing. He's not changing anything. It's just an attack, 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 attack mode. And that's why I can't stand certain black conservatives. I really, really cannot stand them. They there is nothing, just like, okay, the case of George Floyd, when George Floyd was killed and Candace Owens went out and made a video that George Floyd is a criminal, and I'm like, can this bitch be any more insensitive, right? Sorry for using the B word, but that's, I think that captures what I was feeling at that point in time. Can you be any more insensitive? A man has been killed. Yes, he was a criminal. Did he deserve to die that way? Or he deserved to, face the justice system, let the courts decide what his fate was going to be? It's crazy. It's Wolf is saying, Charles, you don't live in America and you speak more truth in 10 minutes that Tatum has in hears. Well, I try to. I hope I'm speaking the truth, but within myself, I try to. I mean, I try as much as possible to say what I believe to be true, because it would, I can't stomach, I cannot stomach any inconsistencies within myself. I really cannot. So if I've seen something a certain way, there's no turning back. I can't pretend, just the truth. I really, really cannot pretend. I'll have to just say it the way it is. And I think that's the kind of honest conversation that is missing in a lot of this YouTube space. People are just ideologically driven. They just want to, I think it's capitalism. I think I know you guys are going to say I'm going off on capitalism again, but it's the truth. It's a business, it's a business model. People are going to look for things that are a sure source of revenue. They look for strategies that are going to work to make sure that their stream of income, continues. I could very well be so right wing, do all the right wing things, and this channel will just be growing and growing and growing. I could very well do that, but I couldn't live with myself if I did that, right? I couldn't really live with myself if I did that. Yeah, there was the one other story I wanted to talk about, Piers Morgan and his weird obsession with the British monarchy. But maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll do another show tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Um, so um, so guys, the conversation is still on. If you want to call in, let me put the link again. Stanley, call in. Let's talk. Wolf, call in. Let's talk for a few minutes. I've talked for close to an hour. Let me hear some feedback from you guys. So that it's not just a total monologue. What do you think about the whole story? What do you think about Steven Crowder and his the way he acted towards his wife? I said, divorce is a very terrible thing that happens to any individual. I don't think I think it's a terrible thing when people decide to spend the rest of their lives together and okay, Stanley is coming. Yep. Hi, Stanley. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wolf, it says
Hey,
the link is
Charles.
broken. Hi, Stanley. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to have you. So, let's talk. What do you think?
Uh, Pretty much agree with what you're saying. I don't really have any disagreements for once.
So, must I be doing something right, or must I be for Stanley to be agreeing with me? Am I sure I'm doing something right? So, what is going on here?
Well, it's kind of hard to. I mean, I think your point about the left and the right being biased and then looping in the business model, that's pretty much on target.
Hmm.
I mean, very rarely do you have one or the other crossing over, to an opposite view. And
Yeah.
as far as Matt Walsh goes, I think he's pretty soon not to even be taken seriously. Um,
Mm,
Guys like that. Steven Crowder is even an even better example. Guys that are that far either way always wind up self-destructing. Um,
mm.
you talked about Steven Crowder, right?
Yeah, I did.
Um, Matt Walsh. I mean, they'll be. He's just a little bit like unbelievable in some of his extremism. Like, he's too literally there are people who would shake their heads at well, there are people on the right who have shaken their heads at Matt Walsh.
Mm.
He's so far kind of out there that, I'm not sure he's being taken that seriously anymore.
At first, I thought he was just being hyperbolic on purpose. I thought he was doing a bit. I thought he was, with the what is a woman stuff, and the whole gender business, which I sort of agree a lot with him on that. But it seems as if he's just going over the deep end. Or am
What is a slave?
what is the N word?
Yeah, so he's going to apply that kind of, you know. But the funny thing, while I say he's not being taken seriously anymore,
Hmm.
he's not alone. There are a lot of people who he speaks for a lot of people.
Yep. And that's kind of sad in a way, right?
Oh, it's business as usual.
Wow.
You know, uh, Tucker Carlson's gone. There'll be someone to replace him.
Hmm. I heard that a black guy is supposed to replace Tucker Carlson on Fox, and there's also a role about that as well. There's also a Twitter. There's also some people are accusing Fox of being woke now, affirmative action woke. And I'm like, seriously, is that what always comes to your mind whenever a black person is chosen for something? Affirmative action
Well,
is what
wait,
always comes to your
I
mind.
I hadn't heard this. Which black person?
I can't remember the guy's name, but
Jason Whitlock?
no, not Jason Whitlock, not Jason Whitlock, but there's a certain black guy that is posited to take over from Tucker, and right wing Twitter is agog. They're like, oh,
Because I heard
Fox
it
is
would be
Fox is
Jesse
going
Waters.
Fox is going woke. Fox is like, guys, calm down, right?
Oh no, I think that is well, people never respond when I say America is a racist country. We eat, breathe, and you know defecate race.
Mm, mm.
If a black person is replacing someone and the right is getting upset, on Fox they're just gonna be, trying to be the next Tucker. What would you be upset about?
Exactly.
So I will say it again. I notice you got silent, but America eats, sleeps, and wakes up in the morning a racist country.
I don't think I don't think there's much to disagree with in that in that statement, in the sense that if everyone is seeing things through a racial lens all the time, if everything is always racialized, right, left, everything, it's the same. It's almost so exhausting that things that would normally not have a racial bent to it somehow.
Well, better than that, it's self evident. I think our problem is we keep denying it.
Mm,
I mean, it's self evident.
wow. Wow, that's crazy. Well, God,
I mean,
God help you.
the irony is the black guys at blogging head, the black guys at blogging heads will be the first to tell you America's not a racist country. The black guys from blogging heads are saying this.
Maybe they have a version of America that they want to be in existence. So they're just trying to will it into existence, with their, like, it has to be this way, it has to be this way, it has to be this way.
Well, I won't even follow up on that, but ignoring it or denying it is actually not a fix. I mean, that's pretty much what race neutral is, racelessness is. It's denial. Okay, denying a problem, putting your head in the sand does not make the problem go away.
Mm, mm, mm. True, true. That's true. I think, when you deny the problem, it actually makes it worse, right? Because you're not going to be looking for solutions to it, because you somehow you believe that there is no problem. But
Well,
if you
not
actually,
only that, the problem doesn't know it's a problem. It's like, you know, hey, if I was a problem, they'd be calling me out for it.
mm. So Antonio said something. He said America has different races. Humans are tribal, and there are powerful forces that want to use the discord to keep people divided. And
Well,
that
see,
is,
that's not really, to a certain extent, that's right, but there are many ways to divide into tribes without race. There are plenty of more homogenous, what we call race, which is
mm,
basically phenotype.
mm,
There are, I mean, Europeans, let's just make a huge, broad statement. Europeans are all white, but
mm,
they're French or they're English or they're Dutch or they're
mm,
German. So there are
mm.
ways of being tribal without bringing race into it.
So does that occur? Are there tribal tensions between the French and the Dutch and the English and the
Well,
Germans?
there, I
And
mean, the French and the English, for instance. I mean, how many European wars were there? So yeah, there've been, if you want to call them tribal or national or whatever you call it, but
mm,
what we call race, that wasn't the reason the French and the English didn't get along, say back in the 1400s or the
mm,
1500s. Race, they weren't getting along before they ever discovered Africa.
yep.
Or
And
when I
and
say
funny
discovered, I mean first got to Africa.
funny story is that the tribal problems in even in my country is crazy. It's crazy. If you, like, the city I currently live in, trying to move to a place closer to my work, and I'm looking for apartments. And I talked with someone yesterday, and the guy was asking me, are you okay? The first guy I talked with, the he asked me, where are you from? I told him, I'm from Delta State. And he just started speaking Igbo to me, even though I'm not Igbo. It was like, oh, the
Mhm.
owner of the house wants an Igbo person, and you're close enough. You're close enough to be Igbo, so he will take you. He doesn't want someone from this other tribe, right? And the other
Mhm.
guy I spoke with yesterday was like, oh, the owner of the house wants someone from this tribe. He doesn't want someone from this other tribe, right? What tribe are you? I told him my tribe. He was like, I don't think I'm going to ask, but he got back to me and said, no, the owner says he doesn't want, he wants a specific tribe. It's and it's even a bigger problem now with the new guy that's coming into power, right? People from his tribe, they are sort of drunk on power right now, because, okay,
Right, right.
our guy is in power. And it's so crazy why humans do things like this. It's silly.
Well, we find ways to be silly as humans.
Damn. Well, so we had a good show, 1 hour 5 minutes. I think it may be a good place to bring the conversation to, close. Wolf, sorry that you were not able to join us today, but I'll try and do another show tomorrow. For Sunday, I have Charles Love coming in. We want to talk about capitalism. I've been going off on Twitter about capitalism, socialism, and communism. So he just said we need to have a conversation about capitalism. I said, oh, cool, fine. So we've been trying to schedule that, and we've settled for Sunday. Sunday should be around 2 p.m. EST. That's when we're going to be having that conversation. But I'll see if I can do another show tomorrow as well, where we'll talk about other things. So,
Okay.
Stanley, thank you for coming to the
Sure.
conversation. Antonio Fernandez, thank you for your thoughts. Wolf, thank you. And everyone who's come to the conversation today, thank you very much, guys. I'll catch you in another live stream, and bye for now.